All right, so I want to jump to your work at NBA. Walk us through why you made that jump, pardon the pun, of course,
Yeah.
why you make that jump to the NBA. 2012? About
2012.
2012?
That's right, 5 years.
How did that happen? What interested you or excited you about working for the NBA?
Mainly that it was the NBA.
Yeah.
It really was.
That's a good, strong brand.
Yeah, it was a strong brand, and at the time I was 6 years in at KPMG. Actually liked the work that I was doing there very much at that point. I went through 3 different roles in my time there, and the job that I was in at the time, I again was really in a good place with. But I also think that's in many ways the best time to make this kind of transition, right? You don't want to be looking with a sense of urgency. So, I found out about the opportunity. I said in my, I joked at the table before actually, the guy who hired me would sometimes tweak me by saying that he pretty much hired me because of my cover letter, and that was it. Wherein I did say, I love what I do for a living, but I've never been particularly excited about the outputs of my employers, right? So, I never got fired up about a piece of luxury jewelry, and certainly never got fired up about a quality audit. So being able to work for a company where I had a sense of connection, I said, on the other hand, I have hugged a stranger in a bar as a result of something I saw in a basketball game, right? So it was exciting to be able to go and do that work. And I also, frankly, it was the skill set that they seemed to be looking for was bizarrely well matched to kind of the odd collection of specialties that I had gathered up to that point in my career. So it seemed on paper like a really good match, and made the leap hoping that it was also a good step for career development. Where I was at KPMG, there probably weren't going to be a lot of opportunities for advancement, frankly, and saw this as a place where I could grow a practice. What I found out when I got there, for better and for worse in some ways, was that the L&D practice was not as sophisticated as I had hoped coming in, which was a little bit of a bummer on one hand, but on the other hand also meant that there was opportunity, and so thankfully the opportunity part has translated pretty well for me.
So how does L&D fit into the business of the NBA? Can you kind of walk us through that? Because there's about 1,500 employees. That's
yeah,
right?
we've grown pretty well over the past. I think it was closer to 1,200 when I arrived. So a 25% increase in those 5 years.
And if I remember our conversation correctly, 26 different departments that are involved in running the NBA. Yeah.
26. It's without getting into the boring details of the way a league office is organized. Every sports league is really unique, and so the NBA operates probably much more like a traditional kind of corporate. Diverse corporate business than the other leagues do, and so 26 unique departments, probably 100 plus sub-departments, and very, very varied areas of practice. Everything from we've got digital media on one end, sponsorships, licensing. Obviously, all the functions that you'd have in any internal group, but it's not just the operation of the game and the game itself. Just a very diverse set, media distribution, content development. We make documentaries, so a very wide range of functions within the organization. Yeah.
So then, how does L&D fit into those different functions? So what does that look like from a daily, weekly, monthly perspective?
Currently, I'd say we've gotten to a place now where we're more focused on the success factors across the organization. So just like everyone else's companies, there are certain obviously technical proficiencies that are part of the equation, and my group isn't focused on those in a meaningful way yet. We'll consult, but for the most part, our focus is on the skills that are common across all departments, all functions, and so we're really targeting those, and we have finally developed a competency model over the past year. I mean, that's really over the past couple of years we've had a real transformation in our HR practice from a somewhat regressive, honestly, set of practices to something that's a little more up to the moment. And
let's talk about that a little bit, because so you started in the era of David Stern as the commissioner, and then Adam Silver came in 2 years ago, 3 years?
Three years ago. Yeah.
So what did Adam bring in that changed how HR is approached, and then how does that filter down to L&D?
I think right out of the gate, Adam talked about being an employer of choice, and David Stern would have also referred to being an employer of choice, but the way he would have referred to it, and I said this once speculatively in a leadership program, and someone in the room said, "No, you're actually quoting him. I've heard him say that," and what he would have said was, "We are an employer of choice. You can choose to stay or you can choose to go."
It's two choices. It's binary.
Two choices, yeah. And that was, David. Listen, David was commissioner, and people sometimes forget that the role of commissioner carries within it the role of CEO. And David had a 30-year run as CEO, and how many companies have the same person at the top of the organization for that long? And by the way, to give him a little credit, I think he would admit this, that kind of his mental model of leadership was formed at a time when it was just very different, right? It was, he came in the 80s. And we just thought very differently about management at the time, and I think his approach was very much informed by that time. And so, when Adam assumed the chair, and like I said, I want to give David a little bit of credit because I think he actually somewhat fostered this in Adam, and probably told him, one thing that I might not have done as well as I could have as CEO is focus on the people side of our business.
When Adam grew up within the organization.
Adam grew up within the organization.
There was a succession plan in place.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah. That was one of the world's worst kept secrets was that Adam was going to ascend to the commissioner's chair at some point, and so Adam came in with a very strong focus. I think his feeling was that we actually do have a lot of growth potential, especially outside the U.S. We are a third of our workforce sits outside the U.S. in 12 regional offices, and that's where a lot of our growth opportunity is. And I think that Adam appreciated that we do most of what we do exceptionally well. Frankly, we're performing at the top of our game and innovating at the top of our game in many of our functional areas. But I think he realized that the one place where that was not true was in our workforce management and the way we develop people. And so to him, I think that was, he articulated very clearly, very early on, that he saw that as perhaps our biggest opportunity was to develop and deploy our talent in a better way. And so that's been one of his real core principles from day one. And needless to say, that freed us up to do things very differently than we had in the past.
So when you say do things differently, what are some examples of that things that you were able to do when he kind of gave you that mandate to change things up? What are some examples?
Well, even something like creating a competency model. I would say that David, frankly, would have had very little appetite for the work effort or investment in doing that kind of work, and just generally tended to treat learning and development. I think it was seen as something that we have to have. That's because it's nice for employees to be able to go to a class once in a while, right? I mean,
it was a benefit versus a need.
Exactly. It certainly wasn't seen as a strategic driver of the business, right? And so even the idea, I mean, frankly, the leadership development function that we have developed over the past couple of years, I don't think it could have existed in the previous administration, where there just would not have been the commitment. I can't imagine under David's leadership, again, not to disparage it, but I can't imagine that he would have been open, for example, to me saying, yeah, we need all of our SVPs to spend 2 or 3 days in leadership development activity. The idea that we would have taken these people out of execution mode for that amount of time would have just been very distasteful to him. And under Adam, it's again recognized as a strategic priority.